Welcome to Crossroads. A former aide of New York Governor Kathy Hochul is now being charged as being a Chinese agent. Now, Linda's son, who worked as Deputy Chief of Staff for Hochul and Deputy Diversity Officer for then Governor Andrew Cuomo, was accused by federal prosecutors of being an undeclared agent for the Chinese Communist Party while working for the politicians. Now, she was arrested on Tuesday morning along with her husband, Chris Hu, at their Long Island home. And according to the U.S. Attorney's Office, this individual, Sun, right, the woman, engaged in political activities in the interests of the CCP with her co-defendant husband. He was conspiring to, allegedly again, launder the proceeds of their unlawful activities. United States Attorney Brian Pease said, quote, "As alleged while appearing to serve the people of New York as Deputy Chief of Staff within the New York State Executive Chamber, the defendant and her husband actually worked to further the interests of the Chinese government and the CCP. The illicit scheme enriched the defendant's family to the tune of millions of dollars." Now, Sun was also charged with visa fraud, alien smuggling, and conspiracy to commit money laundering, while Hu, the husband, was charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, bank fraud, and misuse of means of identification. Now, what's particularly interesting about this case is that these individuals, again, innocent till proven guilty, but they're accused of actually basically trying to enforce the Chinese Communist Party's laws on human rights abuses within New York. This includes doing things against some of the minority groups in China, which the CCP persecutes. Now, here's more on what she did, at least according to the indictment from AP. They say that prosecutors said Sun, at the request of Chinese officials, blocked representatives of the Taiwanese government from having access to the governor's office and shaped New York governmental message to align with the priorities of the Chinese government, among other things. They note that in return, her husband got help for his business activities in China, a financial boost that prosecutors said allowed the couple to buy their multi-million-dollar property in New York, a condominium in Hawaii for $1.9 million, and luxury cars, including a 2024 Ferrari, the indictment says. Now, briefly on this, I've mentioned before, because I've been researching Chinese spy operations since 2008, one of the ways the CCP launders money to people when they get somebody working for them as a spy is they'll often just have them set up a business in China, and the CCP can pour money into the business entity in China. The business entity doesn't have to do anything. They can even have fake clients come for consulting work, and those are just Chinese spies basically paying them. And because the Chinese economy is essentially a black box in most cases for investigators, it's very hard for them to get that information. And so the Chinese Communist Party can do that. They can also just hire them as a consultant for a state-run company and essentially veil the payments from the Chinese Communist Party under the guise of legitimate business payments. This is just basic modus operandi for Chinese spy operations. And so it is interesting that this aligns, it seems, with that kind of system. But back to what it says, it also outlined a series of exchanges that Sun, the woman, had with officials in the Chinese consulate in New York in January of 2021, when Andrew Cuomo was still governor and Hochul was lieutenant governor. And notes that neither leader is named in the document, but are instead referred to as Politician 1 and Politician 2. Now, it notes that after Chinese officials requested a Lunar New Year video from the governor, Lunar New Year is kind of like their Christmas, Sun said that Hochul could probably do it and asked for talking points of things that you want her to mention, right? And they said mostly holiday wishes and hope for friendship and cooperation, nothing too political, an official told her, according to the indictment. The allegation, in other words, is that one of these Chinese agents was instructing this, again, alleged agent on what messaging to give to the governor's office of New York, including in some of the official messages sent out to the New York people. Now, Sun later told a different official that she had argued with Hochul's speechwriter over the draft because the speechwriter insisted on mentioning the Uyghur situation in China. Again, the persecuted Muslim minority that the CCP uses for slave labor and also for live organ harvesting alongside other groups. Now, she promised that she would not let that happen. She wouldn't let them be mentioned. And the final speech did not mention the Muslim ethnic minority according to the indictment. And so again, the allegation is that, and aside from everything else, that this alleged agent was also helping censor human rights issues in the state of New York. Now, this is pretty significant because it highlights, again, one of the bigger issues taking place in this country, that the federal government right now does seem to be doing a lot against Chinese espionage. We've seen several cases prosecuted in New York City. We've seen some in Florida. We've seen some all across the country. And what is happening is that Chinese agents of influence, Chinese spies, people linked in with the Chinese secret police departments or the United Front, these individuals are finally being gone after. And, again, my work as a journalist, as an investigative reporter, started in 2008. I've been at Epic Times since 2006. But as an investigative reporter since 2008, this is the kind of stuff I've been exposing basically my entire career. And I can say there's been a major shift in terms of how the government understands it. Because previously, I was one of the kind of voices in the dark calling this stuff out, but people didn't really understand it. It was very hard for them to understand what subversion was, what agents of influence were, really until like 2010, 2012, even cyber attacks were not well understood. And so it's been a very slow boil in terms of getting individuals to understand how these operations work. What is interesting now is that across the globe, not even just the United States, in Europe and Australia and Canada even, and Taiwan and Japan, they're starting to very strongly go after these CCP networks. Because one of the main ways the Chinese Communist Party wages war, one of the main ways it undermines foreign economies, one of the ways that it steals intellectual property and carries out influence operations is through this network. And the difficult thing conventionally with this particular network, again, United Front type operations, is that it doesn't often look like spying. It looks like, for example, somebody just maybe having certain narratives they're putting out, or maybe subtly advising a government official on the narratives of the Chinese Communist Party. It's very subtle things like this that typically don't really maybe steal money, maybe sometimes they do from businesses, but for the most part are just trying to change American policy, or change the way journalists write their articles, or change the way that corporations do business with China. They're targeting oftentimes those things, right? Agents of influence. Now, in other news, something is happening with Hollywood. It looks like the great decoupling is now coming for the Hollywood films. Now, the break from the Chinese market is hitting Hollywood as American movies are starting to fall flat in China. And this happens as the CCP is warning against the Westernization of Chinese youth as the CCP increases, notably in China, its focus on soft power. And as this happens, the CCP is also expanding its programs on censorship and surveillance, suggesting the CCP is afraid of something right now, more so than before. Now, CNBC said this. They said Hollywood blockbusters have dominated international box offices for decades, but in recent years they have lost luster in the largest movie market outside the US, China. And it said Walt Disney Co.'s latest film, Deadpool and Wolverine, has taken the world by storm since its release on July 22nd, becoming the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. But it has failed to replicate that success among Chinese moviegoers. And it notes further in that meanwhile, Chinese films like The Successor have a major home field advantage because in China, that's the one performing, not the Hollywood films. And it said, as per local media reports, China Film Co. had a role in producing The Successor, again, this Chinese film. The company was started by China Film Group Corporation, notably, linked to Beijing's propaganda department and other CCP entities. Now, it's according to Lingnan University's Ye, while Successor is a great movie with a great script, according to them, it still benefits massively from distribution, promotion, and, quote, blessings from the state, from the Chinese Communist Party. Now, look, under the Chinese Communist Party, movies are not just entertainment. In fact, under Xi Jinping in particular, he's made it officially that culture and the realm of culture is a battlefield. Movies are not just about entertaining you. They are deeply tied with the agendas and the narratives of the Communist Party. And the same goes for video games and other forms of messaging as well. In fact, even the video games in China have had to sign public declarations that they will serve the propaganda interests of the state. And the CCP, notably, also tightly regulates the internal markets when it comes to promotion and distribution, meaning if you don't work with the CCP, your film's probably not going to work out if you can even get in the country in the first place. Now, look, what's really interesting with this, with all this data coming out, is that Hollywood doesn't seem to have changed. Hollywood has a track record of basically bending over backward to cooperate with Chinese Communist Party censors. They just fold on just about everything. It seems that what has changed instead is not Hollywood. What has changed is the U.S.-China situation and the relationships, and notably the CCP taking actions pushing back against the U.S. and the U.S. pushing back against them. But the Chinese Communist Party is going after industries that are kind of positive towards China in most cases. For example, Hollywood. And this is having notably a ripple effect through other industries as this trade war and as global conflicts get a lot hotter. Now, another key aspect of what we're seeing right now and why American films aren't doing well in China is that the Chinese Communist Party is actually directly intervening. I'll be talking about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. American films are starting to fall flat in China. Now, there's a reason why this is happening more than just, the market. The Chinese Communist Party is directly intervening in the film industry, and they decide who wins and who loses. The CCP is also warning right now against, quote, Westernization of Chinese youth, because notably it seems to be focused on soft power, but more so on, quote unquote, social stability. Now, first on this whole intervention with films. Bloomberg said, since the first U.S. picture was approved for release in China in 1994, studios have come to depend on that market for growth as the box office peaked in the West and streaming stole audiences. But in recent years, Chinese regulators have curbed access to their theaters, saying most American titles don't align with Communist Party values. You're just not communist enough. Look, if Hollywood's not communist enough, I don't know what is, right? But look, this also ties to a broader push taking place under the CCP right now. South China Morning Post said this. He said the Communist Party's top theoretical journal has highlighted the threat from, quote, subversive foreign forces trying to influence China's youth. By releasing, they notably released something important, which is an excerpt of his speech by Xi Jinping that was made 6 years ago, and they're making it public now. Now, in that speech that Xi Jinping gave, again, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, he gave this to the National Education Conference in 2018. Xi Jinping accused these so-called hostile foreign forces of trying to, quote, westernize China's youth and plot a color revolution, stressing the need for ideological education in classrooms. And he said this, for a long time, various hostile forces have never stopped implementing strategies to westernize and divide our country, Xi told the conference. And he added, quote, they have never stopped carrying out these subversive and sabotaging activities against the leadership of the party and our country's socialist system, and they have always attempted to plot a color revolution in our country. He said the area where they focus most is the fight over our young people. And in the speech, she quoted late leader Mao Zedong, who said that the activities of the imperialists, quote unquote, would have no effect on the first and second generations after the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the establishment of the CCP, but they might hope to influence the third and fourth generations. And Xi Jinping is now calling, or at least at the time, for, quote, successors to socialism and establishing firm ideals and beliefs, especially the ideals of communist and socialism with Chinese characteristics. Now, what is happening right now is that the Chinese Communist Party, at that time, notably, not only did Xi Jinping warn about cultural influence coming into China, but Xi Jinping, in that speech, declared culture war on the West. And it was actually that 2018 speech that started a lot of the really heavy focus they had on, going after foreign influence and culture and entertainment and the whole nine yards. The CCP started really cracking down on it, while at the same time trying to build up their own things like video games and movies and other things, which they can use to wage culture war outside of China. And Xi Jinping has previously stated his intent, not to just, prevent outside culture from coming in, but to actually wage what they do refer to as culture war against other countries. Now, this ties into something we've been talking about for a while. Why would the Chinese Communist Party do that, right? Well, the CCP, they appear to be suddenly worried about social stability. This is one of the buzzwords you hear going across just kind of between the lines of most of their public documents right now. And, from the Chinese youth, the young people in China who they're suddenly so afraid are getting influenced by the West, they're facing the, quote, laying flat movement. And within that laying flat movement, people in China, young people especially, are rejecting one of the core components of communism, the idea of personal revolution. Meaning communism now in China maybe exists on the surface, just a veneer, but internally it has no strength because people don't believe in it anymore. Now, the narrative of this personal revolution thing has been one of the main focuses of the CCP, and it's just falling flat. And the CCP also appears to be concerned about a foundational policy, notably the survival of the Communist Party. Because again, in China, the survival of the CCP is the number one top priority. They will kill half the country if they have to ensure the survival of the party, because that's what matters most to them. And interestingly, alongside this whole culture war right now and the public stating of it, right, the CCP is also rolling out heavier controls and information overall. And it's now even targeting people to inspect their electronic devices. I'll be talking more about the CCP's new heavier information control rollout only on epictv.com. So if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, there's a link in the description below. Click on that. You'll get access to the rest of this episode and also our whole library of shows and also our hard-hitting documentaries on issues that matter, like the Chinese Communist Party's 100-year plan to defeat the United States. The CCP is one of the biggest threats to this country. They're using things like propaganda, video games, entertainment, movies, culture to subvert and influence the next generation. This unrestricted war against our country is one of the scariest but least understood issues of our time because it's not tangible. It's being done through soft power and ideological subversion. If you want to find out more about what the CCP is plotting against America, watch my documentary, The Final War, the 100-year plot to defeat America. You can find the link to that in the description below, and I'll show you all the trailer before you go exclusively to epictv.com for the rest of this episode. I'll see you there.
The greatest threat facing the United States is the CCP.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years, but what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
With Chairman Mao, with the Prime Minister, our talks have been characterized by frankness.
The Clinton administration said, oh, don't worry about it. This will be a poison pill for China.
China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group.
We are giving of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.